Hello, my name is Mark Laureyns. I'm the president of the European Association of Hearing Aid Professionals, AEA, and co-chair of the Make Listening Safe workgroup. In this presentation, we will focus on why it's so important to start early. It is essential when you experience hearing loss that you don't wait until you perceive and experience the consequences of untreated hearing loss. That would be a shame. Hearing screening and hearing care for young active people with hearing loss, studies and new findings. In the World Report on Hearing, you will see there's also a lot of quotes and focus on the relation hearing loss and dementia, and also focus on the role of hearing care. One of the quotes is that hearing loss is the largest potential modifiable risk factor for age-related dementia. Another quote is, unaddressed hearing loss may be responsible for over 8% of cases of dementia among older adults. The effectiveness of hearing screening in older adults. And here you see that adult hearing screening and early intervention become even more relevant given the link between hearing loss and dementia. The last quote we see here is that timely intervention with hearing aids and implants will lead to better results. The use of hearing aids can also protect against cognitive decline and dementia. So as you heard from the presentation from Shelley, the World Report on Hearing is focusing a lot on the fact that intervention needs to be possible. And certainly when you look at the risk of dementia, also hearing care here plays a very important role. In that World Report, you will see that they focus a lot on research done by the Lancet commissions. And here you see the overview of what they propose. The Lancet commissions looks at the weight of the modifiable risk factors for dementia. And one of the most important risk factors at early life is education. It is really essential that we make sure that young people have access to good education that will help them to prevent the risk and to lower the risk of dementia in later life. At midlife, and also the highest percentage, you see hearing loss. So hearing loss is a modifiable risk factor, and in fact in midlife it's important to start, so don't wait until it's too late. And then in later life, one of the best things you can do is quit smoking. Of course, it's better not to smoke at all, but if you have started, those work. So if you would add all of these up, you will see that you already cover more than 20% of the risk of dementia you can lower just by focusing on these 3 points. But don't hesitate to take all of them. In the earlier report from the Lancet commissions, they were quite careful in proposing different solutions, but now you will see that they are much more focused and much more positive about hearing care. So they state at midlife, age between 45 and 65 years, hearing loss represents 8 or 40 of the modifiable risk factors. You have heard this before. But they also say that you need to take specific actions for these risk factors across the life course. You need to encourage the use of hearing aids for hearing loss and reduce hearing loss by protection of ears from excessive noise exposure. So 3 steps. First of all, prevent, protect. That's also what we are doing actively with the Make Listening Safe workgroup. Then when you have seen that you may have a hearing loss, I think it's important to have early screening. And there also the World Health Organization has created a Hear WHO app. Please download it. We will give you more details at the end. And then at the last, don't forget intervention. Intervention with rehabilitation, with hearing aids, with cochlear implants, with whatever is needed to ensure that you avoid the consequences of untreated hearing loss. What is the relation between hearing loss and employment? There was a very recent systematic review published in the Journal of Laryngology and Otology, where they looked at more than 13,000 articles, of which 243 were selected with different inclusion criteria. Shan et al. Presented this, and the conclusion is that the highest quality studies currently available indicate that adult onset hearing loss is associated with unemployment. So if you have onset hearing loss during the life course, this can lead to unemployment, so it's quite important to act. Also, a study published by Nachtegaal and Kramer in the Netherlands, it's a longitudinal follow-up study, where they have in fact sent questionnaires to more than 1,700 people. They looked into this. They measure hearing loss with a speech and noise test, the digit triplet test, and they say that the results indicate that limitations in hearing have an impact on psychosocial health and work in young and middle-aged adults and young elderly. So here again you see this relation between hearing loss and unemployment. And then there's a last study published by Scholz and others. They looked at socioeconomic differences. It was a large survey in the UK, right, where in total 3,292 participants took part. And the conclusion is here that initiatives to detect hearing loss early and increase the uptake and the use of hearing aids may provide substantial public health benefits and reduce socioeconomic inequalities in health. And of course, socioeconomic has a lot to do with income and has a lot to do with employment. So all these studies make it clear employment is important. Hearing loss can have a negative impact, and of course, we need to do something about it. So act in time and don't wait until you start to lose your job, right? That is not a... Now, what could be the cause of all of this and what could be related to employment and other factors? One of the interesting aspects is to look at hearing loss, tinnitus, and depression. Here you see a study published by Suzanne Koch, where it's clear that hearing loss increases the likelihood of experiencing clinically relevant depression symptoms. It's not new, we have seen these studies before, but this is a fairly recent study looking into that aspect. A study only published last year by Kim et al. Shows that there is a positive association between audiometric hearing loss, so tested with an audiometer, and depressive symptoms, severity. So the severity of the depressive symptoms will increase the moment that the hearing loss becomes more important. Interesting, additionally, they state that the use of hearing aids was inversely associated with depressive symptom severity. So it means that if you start wearing hearing aids, the severity of your depressive signals will go down. So they will become less severe. Another study by Herr et al., you see that there is a relation between tinnitus, depressive symptoms, and by the way, organizational justice. So it's how fair it feels when you're in the legal system as such. They also look at tinnitus and they also look at depressive symptoms. And you see a very clear relation between tinnitus and depressive symptoms as such. So depressive symptoms are positively associated with tinnitus. In the same study, they also looked into the relation between tinnitus and burnout. And you can see that in the same logic, in the same type of study, burnout was positively associated with tinnitus. This was a fairly large cross-sectional study based on a sample of 1,632 employees. So I think it's not just a minor study, and we see a relation as such. Now, burnout is a huge issue these days, and as also the European community and the European Commission is focusing very actively on burnout. So burnout in the workplace, a review and data and policy responses in the EU is a very interesting paper. We will also make sure we have it in the references. You can download it, very interesting as such. And we work together with Steffi de Saar, who did her master's thesis on burnout, on the burnout assessment tool. It's a tool developed at the Leuven University in Belgium, which makes it easier to detect burnout first signals. And this study was just validated and published, and you can find it in this link. Now what we did together with 4 audiology students is that we looked into the relation between hearing loss, tinnitus and burnout. And we took a large sample of more than 200 subjects looking into this. So what did we find? First of all, we found that burnout signals were associated with self-reported hearing loss. So if you start to experience hearing loss yourself, we see that the primary burnout signals increase in severity. We also found that burnout signals were associated with self-reported noise acceptance. So if you have problems accepting noise, the risk of higher primary burnout signals is much higher. We also found that burnout signals were associated with self-reported understanding speech and noise. So the more problems you experience in understanding speech and noise, the higher the risk of having a higher primary burnout risk. And last, and that is not surprising, that is in relation with the other studies you have seen, we also have seen that the primary burnout signals were associated with self-reported tinnitus. So people who report more severe tinnitus also had a higher score at the primary burnout signals. So all these aspects play an important role. So we see that there was a relation between self-reported noise acceptance and burnout signals. In other studies, we have also found that self-reported noise acceptance is correlated with the acceptable noise level test. That is a test we use in hearing care to select hearing aids and to select features like noise reduction. And when interviewing people who have a very poor score on ANL, it is clear they are people that are really easily bothered by open office spaces. So when they work in an office and there's more people working around them, they are much more bothered. They typically can't concentrate when there is too much happening around them. And we have also seen that people with a very good ANL, they can easily concentrate. So they don't mind if there's more people around them. So it's interesting to see that the test results on the ANL are nicely related to the fact that people are easily bothered by sounds and activity around them. Looking into this, there's a study from Appel and Meulenbroek, also published last year, where they look at the impact of activity-based workplaces on burnout and engagement dimensions. And what they find when they look into the whole sample is that open space offices that offer more distraction, they lead to more individual strain, they lead to more interpersonal strain, which can result in more burnout problems. So that is not so surprising. If you know on top of that understanding a noise is related to burnout, we see right away that for people with hearing loss, in fact, they will experience more problems than the average person working in an open space office. So that seems to be quite important. Now, in a study conducted by Eurisco in 2015, they looked into coping with noise, and they also analyzed the environment in which people are working. And we see that in Europe, 28% of the people who are working in an office work on their own in an office. So they have an office for their own. 35% work in an office with max 6 people. And 29% work in a typically open space office with more than the 6 people sitting in the same office. So that's a fairly high percentage, that only 28% are sitting in a very calm environment. Here there is a little disturbance, and here there will be more disturbance. Now, interesting enough, how does that differ in Europe? Well, we see that Germany and France, they have the highest percentage of single offices, so offices where you are on your own, and then directly followed by offices with up to 6 people. While at the other hand, you see in the United Kingdom and in Spain, there the percentage of people working in open space offices with more than 6 people is more than 45%, a very high percentage. And we also see here that also in the Netherlands and Portugal, the percentage of open space in combination with offices up to 6 people are also much higher than the average in Europe, as you can see here. So at that moment, we can see that in fact the use of open space is very popular in Europe. But if we know that this can lead to burnout, we may be quite careful, and it's very essential to have fast interaction and to have a fast reaction. So to conclude, hearing loss is a modifiable risk factor for dementia, and we should encourage the use of hearing aids for people with hearing loss, and we also need to be sure that we protect our ears at mid-age, 45 to 65 years. The highest quality studies show that adult onset hearing loss is associated with unemployment. Limitations in hearing have an impact on psychosocial health and work. Initiatives to detect hearing loss early and increase the uptake and the use of hearing aids may provide substantial public health benefits and reduce the socio-economic inequality. Hearing loss increases the likelihood of experiencing clinically relevant depression symptoms, and the use of hearing aids reduces the severity of depression symptoms. Depressive symptoms are positively associated with tinnitus. Burnout is also associated with tinnitus. Burnout is also related to self-reported hearing loss, self-reported noise acceptance, and understanding in noise. And open space offices represent 29% of the offices in Europe, and these can result in more burnout problems, even more so for people with hearing loss. We need to ensure that we create a world where nobody's hearing is put in danger due to unsafe listening. So the first part to do is to be sure that we use prevention. Now, let me give me the chance to promote the Make Listening Safe workgroup. Please link to this LinkedIn group so we can inform you much more on all the initiatives on safe listening. Awareness is important, so early screening is essential. From babies till adults at workplace, be sure that we screen. Also, the World Health Organization has developed a test, the HEAR WHO test, which is a numbers and noise test. Please click on this and download this test and use it on your smartphone. And last but not least, the moment that we are aware that something's wrong, it's time for intervention. So if you want to find more on intervention in rehabilitation, use of hearing aids, use of cochlear implants, feel free to click this link and you can see our portal on our action plan. We need to start early. That is the key state. Thank you for your attention. If you have questions or remarks, please don't forget to put them in the chat box, and we will make sure to come back to them and give you as much answers as possible. Thank you for listening. All the best.